what happens? What did all of the women before the medical industrial system do? What did they do before pregnancy tests? What did they do before ultrasounds and before all this technology that actually is just interfering with the divine process and is causing so many problems and unnecessary interventions and deaths of infants, babies, and the mothers?
We're back, baby, with a brand new season of the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. Join us each week as we have unfiltered conversations about how to transform your life. Our mission is to usher in a new era of spirituality where you don't have to be all love and light to live a life of alignment. Here, we honor all of it, the profound and the profane, the magic and the messy, and all things that make you human. So let's discuss the truth behind transformation and be unapologetic in our evolution. From manifestation to money, embodiment to energy, and all taboo topics, nothing is going to be off limits. Are you ready to live a life that feels just as good as it looks? Let's get fucking spiritual. Hey, what's up, you guys? And welcome back to another episode of the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. Today, we do not have a solo episode. We have a very special guest, and I'm so excited to bring her to the show today. She has become a dear sister of mine here in Austin, Texas, and she is just a powerhouse. This woman has so many different codes and pieces of wisdom, from overcoming religious trauma to becoming a wild woman, birthing 3 sons, having a free birth. I mean, she's done it all. She's just such an incredible, integrous human being, and I have the pleasure of calling her a friend and also co-facilitating with her here soon at her event, and I'm really excited for her to share her wisdom on the show today. We have Davana May. Welcome to It's Fucking Spiritual.
Yay. Hello,
Yay.
hello.
Hi. I'm so excited to be doing this with you today, because even just dropping in before this show, I'm like, what are we going to talk about? Because you have so many things, and even I'm learning about your story even more, just going from, I mean, we have similar backgrounds and like kind of partying and just, being in the matrix, I guess you would call it, like, being just living kind of a regular life, to now who I know you as, which is this just like powerful mom and facilitator and ancient medicine woman. And just would really love for you to give the listeners a context of your story, of just like what that evolution kind of looked like for you, because I know there's going to be so much wisdom in that.
Thank you. So I'll start with what I call my transformative relationship. That's kind of where the start of my spiritual awakening began. And I was living in Southern California. I met this beautiful man. We started dating. We lived together. We moved in together pretty quickly at the beach. We were living on the beach. He would surf, and we just had this little nice life. I teach Pilates. And over time, I started to notice with my awareness. I have a degree, my bachelor's degree is in psychology, and I was just always into self-help and my inner world. And I was able to see and feel and notice that something was changing inside me over the course of that relationship. I was starting to get insomnia, depression, paranoia. I didn't know at the time it was depression. Looking back, I was like, oh, that's depression. But the thinking I was going to die every single day, constantly thinking about death, constantly looking over my shoulder, and the paranoia when I'd walk my dog, I would be like, she would be terrified of other dogs. And I was also terrified of people on the street. And I was never like that in my life. So I was just starting to track this, and I was like, oh, we're similar. And I was like, oh, we have the same owner. And there's like light bulb click for me, and just continued on my journey to mushrooms. Magic mushrooms really helped open my eye. And they took me on a journey. A year later, I was able to leave that relationship, and it set me on the course of my life and my healing, self-love, my connecting to the goddess, my personal journey, and healing from some religious dogma that actually started in that relationship, not my upbringing. My parents were all about all different religions. We would go to the self-realization center, but it was in that relationship, which was symbolic of the control and the the trauma bonding that was happening in that relationship.
Wow. Okay. I have so many different directions that I could take this, because I'm just even imagining some women listening to this right now that are maybe in a relationship where they're like, I feel that I'm losing myself, or I feel like I'm getting depressed, or I feel that there's some control things happening. What did you uncover within yourself? And like, how did you realize that you were in this dynamic? I guess, what did you uncover that either like got you into that dynamic? And then what do you see now that I feel like you've completely rebirthed yourself into this whole new way of being, which we'll get to.
Yes.
But
So how did I get into that? Was I was fully in my ego. It was an ego outer relationship. He was beautiful. People would stop us on the streets. There were red flags in the very beginning that I didn't know at the time are red flags. But looking back, I was like, oh, that's what that was. That was a red flag where there was a little boop. It was literally like a red flag waves inside you for a flash.
Yeah.
And then I write it off and I go, oh, we'll get to that later. And it started with controlling aspects, him not wanting any old pictures of my ex-boyfriend and me on my Facebook page. And then I would be like, okay, he was really good at being like, just do it for me. I know it's crazy. I know it's a lot to ask, but I just love you so much. And if you know me, that you could just do this for me. So I'd be like, okay. And then be like, no pictures of you and any guy friends. And I'd be like, what? And we'd circle around talking about it for an hour. I'd be like, okay, fine. And it was just slowly over time, more and more control. Don't hold open the door for another man at the gas station. You don't hold doors open for men. It's like, okay, don't hug your friends. It was just over time.
Yeah.
And I remember 6 months in, I sent him an email saying, you are crossing my boundaries. You are giving me an ultimatum. Ultimatums are not okay in relationships. So I looked back and I was like, whoa, I knew then that something wasn't right. And I put up a boundary, but I didn't have enough self-love at that time to stick with the boundary and say, I'm leaving, bye. And that's the hardest part. I feel like when you know and you're just not going to leave in that moment.
Babe, I can really relate to this. And I know so many women listening to this can relate. And I know what you're about now. And we'll get into this because I feel like it's so a part of my journey. And it will be so inspiring for so many women listening to this, but all about rewilding yourself, right? And liberating yourself as this like free, sovereign woman. And what I hear in that is negating your body.
Yep.
And how often, right? And this is so connected to everything, you guys listening. Like, how many times are we in a relationship when we feel that red flag, or we're in a job, or something that's just like, even we feel like there's a scenario happening, and we're like, we feel that ping, you feel your body contract, right? Like, ooh, something's off. It's that your body is the thing that will show you the red flag. And then how often do we talk ourselves out of it and like go into the story of like, oh no, but it's fine, and fully negate. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more from you when you're like, I didn't have that self-love. What is that? Yeah. What did that?
Yeah. Cause I remember we were at a crossroads where I could have left the relationship, and I remember but I couldn't. Because I was too afraid to lose that love that he was giving me, which actually wasn't love at all. It was fear. The entire relationship was based off fear.
Yeah.
And for both of us, fear and control, power and control. And I was able to see, basically what it feels like is that I went down to the depths of the darkness with my soul awareness, being able to witness on some level what was happening and go and pull me out. And some women never make it out. They'll stay forever until they die, whether it's at the hands of him or heart disease or some kind of disease, because staying in those kind of relationships create physical manifestations of fear and disease in the mind, body, spirit. And for me, it was the mental health. So I'm able to have compassion for women who are in this, because you're not going crazy. I thought I was going crazy, and I didn't think it had anything to do with him. I could feel something changing in my brain. Something was changing in my brain. And it took me, I will say, almost 10 years to heal it. I'm just now coming out of it. Like where I'm like, oh, it's done. It's cleared.
Yeah.
Wow. And it was so many different modalities. And
Oh, and I want to go into that too.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to touch on here, because I'm just thinking to the woman listening to this who's in a relationship right now.
Mhm.
I also think, and I never thought this was, I myself have been in an abusive relationship. I was in a very abusive relationship about a decade ago, and have had threads of controlling relationships in my 20s, and it's a very specific dynamic, and does come from negating your body, a lack of self-love, a place of fear, needing to be saved, all of these different like
Needing to save him.
needing to save him, all of those different complexes and dynamics and thought forms and patterns. And what I've also realized in recent, honestly, over the last years, I've done even more work, is that I don't know what you think about this, but when you notice like my thought forms and my pattern, like it's literally changing. Like you're saying, it's changing something in your brain, like something inside of me is different. I almost think sometimes we, as like very open, energetic, empathic women, pick up on thought forms of the other person,
You
of
start
theirs.
to pick
Oh,
up
I'm getting
on
chills.
Yeah, you become. I've read this in my crazy studies that I did for 10 hours a day afterwards. My mom was like, "Get out, that's enough," because I was just obsessed with reading about narcissism, sociopath, abusive, emotional abuse, the whole shebang bang. I was like, how did I get in that? How did I stay?
Yes.
Oh, my dad. Oh, my father was abusive, even though he was physically abusive. I didn't.
Right.
I was in it. I was full on in it. I didn't even know what misogyny was.
Yeah.
The book Men Who Hate Women and Women Who Love Them, my story is in that book.
Oh,
Reading it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I went through the same thing. And I didn't even know how to pronounce the word misogynist. I was like, my misogynist, because I didn't even know what that word meant.
Yeah.
Because I was in that
you
word.
didn't know, right?
My dad was that, essentially.
Wow.
And loved me so much. And some kids are abused, some are loved, and some are loved and abused. And I was loved and abused by my father. I was his world, I was his everything. But it also came with emotional and physical abuse. And so I just attracted that same dynamic in a partner. If I can change and mold and be perfect, you'll love me. Okay, it's me. I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough. I need to change. I'll finally be loved by you and be loved by my father ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I just have so much compassion, and I see so much of myself in that story as well. And so many women listening to this, I know, can also relate. And yeah, the piece on you pick up on their thought forms.
Okay, yes.
Like I'm like, I want to go back to this. The reason why I want to go back to this and like, I want to bring this here is because this fucking blew my mind.
Yes.
Blew my mind. I want to hear what this said. I'm like, I could go so down this rabbit hole. I had a relationship that I was sleeping next to him and literally couldn't sleep. Like all of a sudden I'm feeling like majorly anxious. Like all of a sudden everything is doom. I'm like, what's happening with my business? Like I had this like all of this crazy, but it was filtering through my thoughts as if these were my thoughts about my life and about my business, all these things, right? Then we kind of cut connection, and I could literally feel all of my life force energy come back. And I'm like, whoa, I think I was picking up on his thought forms, but those thought forms filter through your perception and you make it think that you think it's you.
Yep.
And it's not. And
not.
I'm like, I'm getting such crazy chills right now because I don't know, I wanted to bring that on here because it was such a big deal.
That's where like the archetype of the vampire, where it comes from, because they're sucking your life force and their light actually becomes stronger and they become healthy and they're shining and they're all social and they're this because they're pulling on our energy, and we start to become more like them and go into like the mental dark realms of the mind that they are in, and their personality disorders. It starts to become enmeshed. Yeah. And we start to rub off on it. Yeah. And because remember when I met him, he was terrified, or he did not like social events. He was like, I don't go to big games. I don't do this, even though he was a football player, but he didn't like to go into be a participant at big events. I was like, oh, I love that. Like concerts. He like never went to a concert. It gave him anxiety, and I didn't understand that at all. But tell me why, after being with him for 4.5 years, I started to be terrified of going to large events. I have an instance where I was at the Hollywood Bowl, and I literally had a panic attack where I thought the guy next to me was going to kill me. And I got up and ran and left.
Oh my God.
And that was happening. And it took, that's what needed to heal in the brain. Because then when I left that relationship, it took time to come back to me, but I could feel the fear that I still had in looking at another man, talking to another man. I couldn't look men in the eyes. My confidence was
Wow.
to the ground, to the floor.
Wow. And 4.5 years, long,
Long.
long time. And what an initiation. And now here you are. So many years later. And I want to hear about the journey of reclaiming your power.
Yes. So thank you, God. At this time that I was with him, I was more of an atheist. He
Okay.
was very Christian. So he brought me into the church realms. And then together we started studying Rastafarianism, and I actually grew out my locks. And then he grew out his locks, but it was at a reggae on the river where I ate mushrooms for the first time. And it was in that mushroom ceremony that I was told to get off birth control. And then this took me on my holistic path where I started getting rid of all chemicals and all my expensive designer perfumes. And I gave away my flat iron. I always straightened my hair, and I actually grew out my locks shortly after that, and went into, stop eating meat. That's part of like the cleansing of the toxins of the system, of the matrix that were in my body and my mind, my spirit. And he was a big part of that. And I discovered essential oils. I saw in LA Yoga Magazine a ad to become a certified medicinal aromatherapist, and I didn't know what that was at all. First, I actually did a make your own Ayurvedic beauty product class where I first discovered essential oils. I was like, what are these flowers in a bottle? Orange peels, grapefruit, like rose, like what?
Natural?
I can make my own things. And then the next month I took a aromatherapy certification. And when I signed up for the class, she said, Davana, that's one of my favorite flowers. Have you ever tried her? You will during the course. And I was like, yay. And this was a life-changing course. I remember he got really sick that weekend because I left for 3 days and had a life-changing awakening experience. And he was really sick when I came back. Like it was all about him.
You were taking your power back.
Yes.
So, okay, I want to pause that for a second for the listeners listening to this. If you are resonating in any way, and this doesn't necessarily just mean a toxic relationship. It could be with a friendship. It could be with your boss.
Yep.
Yeah. It can, in work. It can be any type of dynamic and control patterns that we have. Notice there's energetics behind all of this of like, right? When you're giving their energy or giving your energy and you're losing yourself in a certain dynamic, when you begin to pull that energy back, like what ends up happening, right? And like just noticing your thought forms and your patterns that are around certain people, how you feel around certain people. Like I want to have a teaching moment with them because it's like so real. It's such a good,
real.
So you take this aromatherapy class, you're noticing that dynamic shift.
Yeah, I came back, was so excited to talk about it. It was like all about him. And that was kind of a pattern. Anytime I'd go out with girlfriends, I'd come back and he'd be so mad. Who was there? Were there guys there? And it's like became all about him. So taking my power back in this class, we had to choose one essential oil to order and write a paper about, 5-page paper. Mine was 25 pages because a few days after using the essential oil of Davana, I started to want nothing to do with him. It was his birthday and I did not want to be around him. And he went out of town. And then I started to Google and research just controlling boyfriend, anxiety.
That's what happens.
Insomnia, depression.
Yeah.
And the same thing, I was laying in bed one night and I was like, who is he? I was like, I have no idea. This man is in my bed and he doesn't even know who I am.
Yeah.
It was a weird moment. It was after 4 years of being together or something.
Wow.
Like, he doesn't know me. There's a stranger in my bed. And so I ordered Davana, wanted nothing to do with him, started researching and boom, found all the articles, everything I needed to know about emotional abuse, red flags of controlling men, all the lists of the 25 things of red flags to look for. He had so many of them and just continued to research. And God played a huge role in that, I will say. Like it was as if something else came into my body and just stood there and ended the relationship. But I did it in a really smart way. And I was like, oh, I just need time. I just need space. Because we moved into my mom's house as a stepping stone. So that's the hard part for women, to leave the house you're in. Sometimes that's the hardest part. You're so stuck and comfortable in your home and you're like, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
So moving into my mom's gave me that safe haven to be like, bye. So
Yeah.
he left for a week, and because they say the most dangerous time is when the woman's trying to leave.
Yeah.
So I was really wise in how that all played out. And I was like, just, I need some space. I'll see you in a week. And he was like, okay, hope you feel better. You know, it's kind of like, I made it like, I'm crazy. Like, I just need help. I made it about me, nothing about him. And then I did it over the phone and I was like, come get your stuff. And he was like, what? And then I wasn't there when he came to get his stuff. I went to my sister's house.
Yeah. Oh, that's, yeah.
And so I never saw him again.
Wow. Good for you.
Until I ran into him at a reggae fest show. But yeah, went completely no contact.
Yeah, which
That's
is
the only way.
the
to
only
heal.
way.
And most women, that's the hardest part.
The only
They
way.
want closure. They want to explain. They want, he'll reel her back in by saying exactly what he knows to say that's going to hit your heart and have you respond. And that's all he's looking for. He's a response. It doesn't matter if it's a fuck you or if it's a I love you. It doesn't matter. He just wants a response. Yeah. He knows he won. He got you.
So what would you say to a woman who's in that scenario right now?
No contact. You have to first get a support buddy. I had a friend, my best friend, my childhood friend. She was getting her marriage and family license. So she knew what I was in from the moment she met him. And they didn't like each other. Naturally, I stopped talking to all those friends, my best friends from high school. And when I went back to them after I left him, I was like, I left. They were like, thank you. We were waiting. She was like, I was about to send you a whole packet that I had saving for you, all about domestic violence and emotional abuse. She was like, we were using your story in the domestic violence shelters. My supervisor was helping me and telling me the only thing I could say to you is I love you and I'm here for you. And she would send me those text messages and I would get so mad. Yeah. Why are you sending this to me?
Well, you're in the distortion at the time.
Yep.
So
Stockholm syndrome.
Get out. And I also understand and have so much compassion for anybody who's in that right now, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I myself was in a dynamic like that a long time ago, and it's so hard to leave. Mine was 3.5 years. It was so scary, and no, there is more for you on the other side.
Everything's on the other side. Your whole life, your
whole
whole
life.
freedom. It just gets started.
Yeah, and once you are out of scenarios like that, or even just anything that siphons your energy, well, then you go on the journey of beginning to understand like what's mine, what's theirs, boundaries, how do I make sure that I'm not giving my energy or negating my body? How do I create more trust with myself so that I can actually listen to my body and follow it and have more self-love and all the things. So
the support system was huge. I feel like I didn't finish that support system, like a buddy. So I had the marriage and family therapist that was like, block him, block his email, block the phone number. You know, I'd be like, he said this, block him. So she really held me in that. It took me a little while to block him, but when I did, it was everything I was able to heal. And I would still have flashes of anxiety attacks that would come on. It was crazy. Interesting. I never experienced that in my life before him. Yeah. And then therapy, of course. I did like group therapy. I did love addiction. I did every single kind of healing modality, breath work. That was actually a big part. I was with him and I did a breath work, my first breath work sound bath in LA, in Venice. And my hands were clenching. Yeah. And I saw an owl, which was like my animal.
Owl's my animal.
That came to me. Yeah. And in that, I was already starting to let go of him. I was like, oh, I think I need to leave him. And then the oil came in, and then being with my mom and just praying, asking for the signs. Show me a butterfly. Yeah. God, show me a butterfly if I'm supposed to leave him. Just clinging.
If you're asking for a sign, you already know. Oh, wow. Yeah, really, really empowering that you were able to leave that. And I think it's a story that unfortunately so many women have, you know, and just can share in that in some capacity, whether that's a relationship or any sort of dynamic in their life. So really love that. And I want to hear, I want to hear more about your journey to rewilding. And specifically, I know that you're now a mother of 3 boys. And so you've come quite a long way since this relationship in the beginning of your awakening. Yeah. And now you're such a beautiful stand for radical birth and for women taking their power back. So the way I know you and see you is just this really strong, like medicine woman priestess. It's so beautiful to see you now. I can't even imagine you then, you know, which is also I think such a testament to, how much we can transform when we choose to walk the path and do the courageous thing.
And that's why I'm so grateful for him. For he was a teacher, he was a soulmate. Like my soul chose to go through that contract with him to awaken me and to help other women awaken and on their path to freedom. It's a liberation. It's a liberation journey, and so grateful for him. And my rewilding journey started with him, with locking my hair. Like I went into dreadlocks, and that was a part of finding the plants.
Yeah.
And then when I got out of that relationship, I was like, oh my gosh, Davana, like I'm here for the flowers, for the plants. This is magic. This is medicine. Like God created this. This is the original medicine on the planet. I want to go deeper into the plants. I did my herbalism apprenticeship. I started holding space for women in circles. I was like, women's circles. This was before I had never gone to a women's circle in my life.
Yeah.
And
which they're magical.
and I was like, I'm here to do women's circles.
Yeah.
I'm here to bring the women together, to share our stories, to talk about our wounds, to talk about just my whole healing, everything that I was doing. I was like, this gets to be shared in circle with women, learning about the goddess, like just the whole self-love journey. And so I'm grateful for him in the rewilding process. And that just went deeper and deeper into growing out my armpit hairs, growing out my leg hairs, which I met another man and he helped me in my healing journey. He had studied intimate partner violence in college, Albert, who was the father of my 3 boys. So I met him a year after I got out of that relationship, and he was able to hold deep space for me in what I was going through. Yeah. Deep space. He understood what was happening in my brain and the PTSD, and he just was there like a rock through it. And he held space for me to grow out my armpit, grow out my hairs, like, which was part of my reclamation of the wild woman. Yeah. And it was a process. I was so embarrassed. I'd be in hot yoga and I'd be like, everyone's looking at my armpits. Oh my gosh, I'm so self-conscious about it. And it was part of the moving through of like, don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. And now I'm just like balanced. Sometimes I grow it out. Sometimes I don't. It's just like, I didn't wear makeup for like 4 years. And now I wear makeup sometimes. It's just, I'm more in balance now, but I had to swing to one end of the pendulum. Yeah. But also part of that rewilding journey was getting off birth control, stop using toxic tampons and using, reusable pads or organic pads. And, like I said, getting rid of the chemicals and connecting deeper with nature. The book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, and the whole, reclaiming of the wild woman, I think is a big part of that, because we're cut off. If we're in a relationship like that, we're not listening to our body, to our intuition. And that is the disconnection from the wild woman. Disconnected from our cycles, disconnected from our wombs, from our blood. And all that was a part of the rewilding journey. And then even deeper into motherhood, which I can go into.
Which I would love for you to go into. I love all of this. And just to give context too for anybody that's listening to this, because I have quite a broad audience, and some of them are brand new on their spiritual path, and some of them are so deep into it and have been into it for years. But for somebody that maybe, might not understand, why is that important? Like going on your rewilding journey, connecting with nature, connecting with your cycles, just for someone listening that is like, this is new for me.
Yeah. So one thing that really sparked for me in that relationship, the book Sacred Woman by Queen Afua, I had this book and opened a few pages, and most of it went over my head. But there was one line that she talks about is how what's happening to the earth, like destroying the earth, is a reflection of what's happening to women. And it's a connection to and disconnection to our wombs, a reflection of the earth. And why is there so much disease? Why is there so much womb disease? So many women have hysterectomies, fibroids, cysts, just connecting it to the trauma, to our disconnection from our bodies and our disconnection to the plants, to the earth. It's a mirror. And that really stuck with me. And I think it's like, know thyself. We are nature. And so the rewilding journey is returning to nature. It's returning to your true self, to your feminine self, to balance, to the seasons, to the cycles, to our environment, to God, to what God created. It's like just deeper knowing of who you are. Know thyself.
Yeah. And so what does that give you as you reconnect?
Power, wisdom, love, just everything, creativity, inspiration. I feel like everything came from that. It's just like, just a deep sense of self.
Yeah. Yeah.
a deep sense of self and connection, because all addiction, forms of addiction, for mine, it was love addiction, is lack of connection. We're looking for something outside of ourselves. And that's why breath work is so important, because we're reclaiming, we're bringing our power and energy back to ourselves. And so, yeah, it's a full reclamation of self.
Yeah. Wow. Did you go through SLA?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So SLA is sex and love addiction. That's what I was wondering. Like
Oh,
AA.
right.
You did like the 12 steps.
I didn't, but
Okay.
I did one class, and this woman told me about love addiction in that. And I kind of
Okay.
I did, the therapist I worked with specialized in love addiction. Shout out Cosmic Christine.
Love that. Yeah, I have a lot of friends that are in recovery. And at first I was like, what do you mean? Like, you're in recovery? And they're like, oh, we're in like recovery for all these things. We're in, not just AA, which is the Alcoholics Anonymous, but they're like, we're in SLA, which is sex and love
Yeah,
addiction.
codependency.
Codependency Anonymous, Under Earners Anonymous, Overworkers Anonymous, Overachievers Anonymous. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, wait,
wow.
what? And so many of my friends are in 12-step programs because we all do so much of this work. And they're like, yeah, you don't. And at first I was like, that's really jarring to say it's an addict. Like, I'm an addict. But then as I started to realize, I'm like, oh my gosh, most of us are addicts. We're addicted to
something.
something.
Side of ourselves.
Right. We're addicted to our codependency. We're addicted to love. We're addicted to thought forms. We're addicted to berating ourselves. We're addicted to not believing in ourselves. We're addicted to like so many different things. So I love that you bring this whole rewilding journey, and so much of it, like for my own journey, has been listening to my body and learning how to even reconnect with my body, and what does that look like, and what does that feel like, and can I trust my body more than the story of my mind? And that's still the journey that I'm on.
Yeah.
Truly,
Unfolding,
like
yeah.
of like, okay, I don't need to know, it doesn't need to make logical sense for me to say no here, or for me to walk away, or things like that. So I think it's so good for people to know, like, there's permission in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm loving all of this, and I want to go into your birth
Yeah.
and motherhood, because I'm so inspired by you.
It weaves all together.
Yeah.
It weaves all together. So basically, that relationship was the micro of the macro, abusive relationship in the home, to self, and to the government, to the systems. It's the same thing. It's the micro and the macro. And so to me, the birth is more of the macro. So I did the micro, did that healing. And then in my body, I still had the people pleaser in me, even though I did many years of healing and therapy. In birth, you cannot hide. And it showed me what places I still needed to reclaim my power and my intuition. And so my first son, I also education. I wasn't aware of the different options I had. And I just would go to each doctor appointment every month. We were in Bali. I'd go to the doctors there. We were in Thailand, just traveling. Volcano erupted, decided to go back to Cali to birth. And I was like 36 weeks pregnant. And I was like, it's fine. I'm just going to birth at a hospital. It's covered by my insurance. I was exhausted by this point. I'll be able to teach women that you can have a natural vaginal birth in a hospital, unmedicated. I had the complete opposite birth. Even though I didn't want to be in a hospital, even though there were red flags in my care provider, I stayed.
Yeah.
I didn't listen because I froze. I went into the fawning and freezing.
Yeah.
And I ended up with a cesarean birth. I got put to sleep under general anesthesia, unnecessarily, necessary for the growth of my soul and the work I do now, but it didn't need to happen. And I was on fentanyl and Oxycontin for my recovery meds. And I had the most drugged birth you can have, essentially. And I was sleeping for the birth of my first son and missed his birth. But because of that, my second birth was a full reclamation. And I did what we call a wild pregnancy. So I took no tests of any kind, starting with even a pregnancy test. I just knew the first day that I was supposed to get my period and I missed it. I was like, I'm not even going to take a pregnancy test. I'm just going to see what happens. What happens? What did all of the women before the medical industrial system do? What did they do before pregnancy tests? What did they do before ultrasounds and before all this technology that actually is just interfering with the divine process and is causing so many problems and unnecessary interventions and deaths of infants, babies, and the mothers. And so I was like, I need to do this and I need to see what happens.
Wow.
By any means necessary. what's going to happen if I do it the way all of the women did it before me?
Mm. So you took no pregnancy test, not once?
No pregnancy test. I didn't have any doctor's appointment. I didn't have a midwife. And again, we were traveling. We were finding our next home, which was Austin. So I was like, once I get to Austin, I'll see. Maybe I'll have a home birth midwife. But as soon as I got here, I reached out to Emily with Free Birth Society. I was listening to the Free Birth podcast now at this point, and she gave me the contact info for one woman who lived here named Isabella, who was a radical birth keeper, which means you went through the Free Birth Society school, the radical birth keeper school, to become a birth keeper that can attend births for women who want to birth with no medical licensed midwife or no doctor. So essentially the way it was in the day, which would be a traditional midwife, because that's what we are before the system took over birth, the wise women coming to your house, your sisters, your grandma holding space for birth. And so I had one sister, one woman, one wise woman at my birth, and Albert, and my son Cairo, and I had the most beautiful home birth in the snowstorm. So I gave birth, and the next day we lost water and power for a week, and I wouldn't have been able to leave the house anyway to go to a hospital or to go to a birthing center.
Wow.
So because we had this plan to not leave for the birth, I was in the best case scenario because there was black ice on the roads, no one was driving, and I had a home birth in the snowstorm, a free birth.
Wow. And you fully listened to your intuition.
I listened to my intuition. I just dropped in and trusted, full trust, full prayer, the whole pregnancy.
So I guess that maybe will be a partial answer to my question I was just going to ask, but how did you handle, did fear come up? Like, how did you handle that? Because the first thing I'm thinking is like, you know, the amount of surrender and the spiritual practice that I imagine that is. How did you handle that, move through that, the fear of, just like, I'm hearing all the things that people are probably thinking right now, which is like, but like, what if something's wrong with the baby? But like, how do you not? So
I just trusted my body. I was like, okay, well, one, if this baby isn't meant to come through for any health issues, then I'll have a miscarriage. Or, you know, I just trusted that whatever was going to happen, whatever God wanted to happen was going to happen. And that's the piece that has been removed, I think, from the hospital systems or from the birth world. We are trying to play God by doing ultrasounds to peer inside the womb and see what's happening, by trying to determine the gender before. It's like, why can't we just surrender and be in the feminine and just the full trust and surrender that whatever is going on in there is exactly what you need, is exactly what baby needs, and is part of the divine plan. And I was even open and accepting of a stillbirth because Albert had a dream a week before baby came that I had a stillbirth. So we processed that, and I made peace with that being a potential. And because of that, I was able to fully surrender in the birth. Because the worst had already happened in my mind. So there was no more fear because I processed it.
Wow.
And that was the work, was just breathing through it, trusting, praying. Anytime fear would arise, I did so many reprogramming of my mind. I would listen to a 20-minute meditation every night for 4 months, repatterning, writing to my womb, calling on my ancestors. I called my grandmother to talk about her births and learned that the one home birth she had was a baby that didn't make it. And so that fear was in my lineage. And my mother had 2 C-sections and my sister had 2 C-sections. So I broke the cycle of the C-section.
Wow. Wow, this is so powerful. And this is even what you said about the microcosm and the macrocosm. It's like, even in what you're just sharing about birth, what a beautiful lesson for life, right? Like, how often, yes, the medical system absolutely trying to play God and trying to control, but how often do we try to play God in our life? How often do we try to control the outcome and want to know and want to like make sure that everything's okay so that we can like so perfectly avoid the feeling and the thing that could arise? Talk about reclaiming your power. Fully. The amount of surrender and trust and devotion that is calling you into. And imagine if we operated with that level of trust and devotion in our life, trusting in the unfolding, trusting in God or spirit or right, like, or whatever higher power you believe in. When you're listening to this, it's like, gosh, how much would your life radically change? How much freedom would you feel if you were able to operate in a space of, I absolutely trust the unfolding? Wow. That makes me want to cry. That's really powerful.
I know.
Like, how powerful are you? Like, don't you feel like you are so fucking powerful?
Yeah, and it's in all women if we do the work. It was so much work that went into that, and that's where we are now as women. We actually have to do so much work to unravel and untangle the programming.
Yeah,
the fear, because it was still in my body in that first birth.
I just want to like reflect back to you, just the journey that we went on. We just talked about, you had this challenging, or you didn't say challenging, but upbringing with your father, and this certain dynamic with your father, right? And then you have this abusive relationship where you're fully negating your body. You're fully like, going against what the red flags and ignoring and all the things and not having the self-love, all the way to fast forward now, 3 boys, full reclamation in your birthing experience, saying no to the doctors that, like that you have the same similar dynamic with, right?
It's all the
same
same
thing. It's all
energy.
connected.
Control, fear, power over, not listening to intuition, ignoring the red flags.
And then to ultimately cross the threshold of like full free birth, which is just such a beautiful mirror for life of like the level of reclamation that you have of your power inside of that. And it's just so inspiring. And I just want to reflect that back to you of like how incredible of a journey that you've been on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And after I gave birth, Albert was like, what do you think was harder for you? Like leaving that relationship or this birth? And it was interesting because it's like, it was leaving the relationship was harder. This is the most natural thing. It's like we were born to do this birth thing. Yeah. It's harder in the sense of maybe all the work that I had to do to get there, but we all are naturally made to have a birth like this. Yeah. So that was actually harder because that was more of the mental mind control that I had to break free from the cage I put myself in.
Yeah. And we're all naturally meant to be in our power, which is what that birth was for you. I imagine.
It's like, oh, that was easy. I'll do it again.
Yeah. But like, that is our natural state. Full sovereignty, full power, full trusting of the body, full trusting of the intuition, trusting in God, co-creating and being with the unfolding. Everything else is the illusion. And so that is the thing that's most natural. And in many ways, if we can get out of our own fucking way,
our own mental
in the illusion and the own mental prison that we put ourselves in, therein lies our power, and accessing that power is actually simple and easy. Right? Maybe not easy, but easy.
Natural.
Like, natural.
And his name, my baby's name, the second one, free birth baby, is Nature.
Oh, of course it is. I didn't know that, but I know. But everyone else can find out. Well, your baby's names are so cute. Cairo, Nature, and Zion. Oh, adorable. And they're gorgeous.
Yeah, Zion was also a home birth, dream, fun, wild pregnancy, wild birth. Yeah. Amazing. So it's like, you can do it again too.
Yeah.
I was curious. I was like, can I do it again?
Did you have anything come up before doing, or was it simpler like what was your experience the third time?
Different in different ways. Like just what was kind of a shift going on in my relationship, like some fear things that came in from other people, like that I had to navigate, which was just more reclaiming of my power and getting anyone else's energy outside of me and knowing that I'm just as powerful as them, or just kind of just different layers I had to work through, just more layers. Yeah. And also fear of like, can I do that again?
Yeah. Can I tap into that power again? I feel like that's all of this is such a good, such an incredible mirror for life. Yeah. Of like, and can I surrender again? And you did.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Wow.
And with him, with the third one, I actually had a really bad sinus infection. So I went to go see an OBGYN because I wanted to get a colonic, because I was like, clear this out.
Yeah.
And I had to get a note from a doctor. So I went into an OBGYN, into a hospital to have a checkup while I was pregnant. And I felt going back into that hospital setting, and I peed in a cup. But I chose to. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just doing it because they're telling me to. I was like, I want to do this because I want to get this note from the doctor. And it was like going back in and reclaiming even the experience in the hospital. And I liked the doctor, and I was able to say, no, I don't want that. Yes, that's okay. Yeah. which I didn't do
Mm-hmm.
the first time.
Yeah.
So that's what the gift the third baby brought me, was more balance.
Wow, which is kind of what you were saying before with the body hair and the great we swing the pendulum in the opposite direction and then we come into harmony and balance and
Totally.
being able to like kind of honor it all. And I think that's really what I would imagine as part of the lesson as well, is like kind of like you walked back in there and said, I'm listening to my body. Here's my boundary. This is where I'm a yes. This is where I'm a no. And essentially, you know, we swing the pendulum in the opposite direction often when we are like, okay, this wasn't safe. And I didn't like, right, whether that's in the abusive relationship or the first experience that you had in a birth or anything that anyone's in, right? We swing it in the opposite direction. I'm going to go full free. And then I fully negate the thing that I used to do, right? Or that I used to be in. And then we find this like, when I find the seat of my own power here and now, I can actually go anywhere because I am free anywhere because I can trust me.
That's the key.
Oh,
Humans, right? Are we constantly seeking homeostasis? What's that quote?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
I don't know, but it's true.
Well, that's like what we do.
It's so
we seek
true.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. It's just so powerful. And I just hope anybody that I know people listening to this are feeling so inspired. And I hope that you take, as you're listening to this, that you take Davana's story and are able to apply it to your life of really realizing like where are you out of balance? Where are you giving away your power? Where are you lacking boundaries? Where are you not listening to your body?
Where are you saying yes when you want to say no?
Yeah. Yeah. What does that look like? And what would it look like for you to honor that? Because that's where your power lies. So with that, come to Rewild. Tell us about Rewild.
So Rewild is our Sacred Sister Circle. So Sacred Sister Circle was formed after the birth of my first son. I was already doing women's circles maybe a few years before that, and it just continued to grow and blossom. Albert actually connected me with Heather, Activation Vibration, and we started doing circles in South OC, and we did a big 60-person gathering in San Diego the weekend before lockdown happened. We did another 100-person gathering out in Spicewood, Texas, in the middle of the pandemic. And it's been 3 years since our last in-person gathering, and I heard the call to bring the women back together again. I think it's rippling through the collective. I'm seeing a lot of retreats coming and more gatherings. Like women are feeling the call to come together again in person, like in a bigger way. And so we have a gathering, Rewild 2024 in Spicewood, Texas, the same place, September 20th through the 23rd. We have like 38 facilitators.
Me being one of them.
Yes. We have a delicious menu of amazing chef, cooking gourmet, organic food. We have an incredible lineup and whole programming schedule. It's just so fun. We have Lizzie Jeff coming out. We have live musical performances. It's a beautiful blend of mixing the spiritual, lots of ceremonies and rituals and prayers and blessings, with business. We have wild woman archetype as the main kind of structure. We have creatrix covens, business breakout groups. So we're bringing the wild woman archetype into business, which is very unique for us. And we have, what was one more piece? The fun, the booty shaking, the twerking. We get down. We have rage release. We have roses. We have it full spectrum. We have music, singing, all the things. It's so good.
I'm so excited. Yeah, I feel like it's like retreat meets festival meets just like sacred sisterhood, everything. A lot of women. Yeah. How many women are you guys gonna have?
We can hold 250 women. We have day pass tickets this time, which we haven't ever done before. So
amazing.
4-day pass. We have shuttle service. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys definitely come out for Rewild. I will be there the entire weekend. I'm facilitating each day, actually. I'm facilitating something.
Yeah.
And then I'll be involved and I'll
Share
be
your
there.
code.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll put the code in the show notes for you guys. If you want to come out, repeat the dates again.
September 20th through the 23rd.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I should know that. It's on my calendar. But you guys definitely come out if you're craving sisterhood and just a weekend of nourishment and everything that Davana shared. It's epic. The lineup is epic. These facilitators and the panels and the women that are all going to be holding the space. They're all impeccable.
Women's lives change when they come to these things.
Yeah.
It's so amazing to see. And it's like, even this is for all women. This is for the healers, the mothers, the teachers, the space holders, the women you are doing your own festivals and your own retreats and gatherings, and you want to come receive and get inspired and be nourished and loved and held, make connections, networking. It's so fire.
It's going to be so epic. And you and Heather are just incredible humans. So you guys definitely come. I'm so excited to meet you if you are going to be there. Some of my community is already going to be there because I know we share some community. So that'll be really beautiful. And Davana, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your wisdom. Any final bits and pieces or anything that's coming through, a final message that you desire to share?
Just what's coming through is just the womb connection for women. And it looks different for everyone, and wherever you are in your path, just starting to really cultivate a connection to your womb and just call in your womb healing journey and connect with the plants, the herbs that are here for us to use as medicine, the essential oils, the natural beauty and harmony within.
Beautiful. Great. Well, where can everyone find you?
My Instagram is Divine Davana. Sacred Sisters Circle is our collective IG. And I do one-on-one coaching. We have a kind of mastermind. We're thinking of the other name to call it, but that's going to be coming up in the fall. So yeah, you can reach out.
Beautiful. Yeah. We'll put everything in the show notes. And if you want to join Rewild, definitely go to the show notes as well and book your ticket. We would love to meet you. Davana, thank you so much for coming on. It was so incredible to hear your story and your wisdom. Just love you so much. So,
thank you so much. Love you, sis.
Great. Okay. And with that, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. I am so glad that you're here. And if this episode resonated with you, I invite you to share this with a friend that you feel needs to hear it. And if you are really feeling the love and support for this show, this podcast thrives off of your listens and your reviews. So I would love if you could leave us an honest review. We would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your questions, and it helps us get this podcast in the hands of more people and would mean so much to me to receive your support. So thank you.